They get awful quiet. Good evening and welcome to the regular Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 2nd. A little bit about our agenda tonight. In a minute I'm going to ask Stuart Jacobson. He's going to do the prayer and he's going to do the invocation. That's going to be followed by 3 recognitions, and we'll actually be having people come down to the front part of the podium. Then we'll move on to public comment. In the public comment part, it will be for anybody wanting to speak on an agenda item that's not listed as a public hearing. Now, we don't have any public hearings tonight, so it would be any agenda item. Stuart, are you ready?
God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character, conviction, and honor. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons with the reverence your creation deserves. Renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this in the name by which each of us knows you. Amen.
Amen.
Now please join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our first recognition, I'm going to ask Vernon Hunt, our Director of Information Technology, Keisha Seals, our Engineering Manager. I'm going to ask the IT staff and Communications and Community Engagement staff to join us down front. Vernon, I think you're going to introduce it for us, aren't you?
Yes. Do I have all the right people down here? Come on down.
Don't be afraid.
Good evening, City Council, the Mayor, Allen. Every year, the Texas Digital Government Summit is held in Austin, Texas, and one of the prerequisites for the summit is that jurisdictions all throughout the state get an opportunity to present applications that they believe are standouts in their jurisdiction that serve the public. And so the City of Sugar Land submitted its application to the summit prior to May 29th, and we were awarded the Best Application Serving the Public Award, first place.
Keisha?
I'll take it from here. Thank you. So the CIP Story Map is an interactive tool that we use. The concept of the tool first started in 2014, and it was for the purpose of continuing our public engagement, for promoting transparency, which we always do here at the City of Sugar Land, and then also just allowing the public to be more aware and have facts about our project. So the project itself actually came on board on 2015. We went live. We worked very diligently with the IT department to help us become very 21st century interactive with maps and Esri, and they did a great job. One of the things I do want to say is that the map does allow for you to click on any current project that is ongoing. It has all types of information there. there. It's on our website, the landing page of the website. You can actually find out what's going on with the project, see it in your area. It has the project manager's information. The only thing we're not showing about the project manager is their address, but we have their phone numbers, we have who the project manager is, we also have who the construction inspector is. The great thing about this tool is that it also shows pictures, and so as the name says, it's a story map, and what we wanted to identify is the fact that it goes along with the story of the project from beginning to end. And so again, I want to thank the IT department. Most importantly, I want to thank the project managers and the staff that diligently put in the CIP quarterly updates each quarter, because that's the information that's actually tied to the CIP story map. So without them updating that quarterly update, we wouldn't have any information.
Thanks, Keisha. Pass it to Cindy. Let's introduce everybody.
Oh, okay. Well, we can go down the line. I'm Cindy Dees. I'm the Director of Public Affairs, and I oversee the communications and community engagement area, and we use the CIP story map every single day in our job to help our residents and to also direct residents there to get more information and learn more about the projects themselves. So it's a very useful tool.
Again, Keisha Seals with the engineering department.
Merrick Shank with the IT department.
Larry Dorrington, Senior GIS Specialist.
Waldo Antian, one of the application developers.
Imelda Balani, Information Technology Department.
Alan Veneman, GIS Specialist.
Vernon Hunt, Director of IT.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And, you know, you guys, we're known for being a city of firsts. And you guys don't get down here very often, but you guys do a lot of really good work behind the scenes. So we want to thank you for that, and we want to thank you for a great project. Keisha, thanks for working with them. And congratulations, and let's see if we can get council over here and get a picture. You know, don't be afraid to move over a little bit. You can act like you like each other.
Ready to move on to the next ordinance? All right, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank y'all. Our second recognition tonight is for National Parks and Recreation Month in recognition of Sandy Penman. Come on down, Joe. Joe knows. Come on down here. Joe, you're going to introduce this one for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, and members of City Council, for allowing us to recognize National Parks and Recreation Month. Every year, July is National Parks and Recreation Month. I'm not sure why they picked the hottest month of the year for it to happen in Texas, but that's a national thing, so that's what we go with. Just a little bit about the park system. We're very proud of the park system that we've been able to offer the residents here in Sugar Land. We've been awarded the gold medal for Parks and Recreation by the Texas Parks and Recreation Society a couple of times over the years. And we've provided 30 parks and facilities in the city of all different sizes, from small neighborhood parks all the way up to large-scale regional parks like the Brazos River Park. We've got 900 acres of developed parkland in the city, and open space for people to utilize. In addition, we've got another 1,300 acres of just green space in the city that aren't developed, but they just act as habitat and green space, you know, for the beautification of the city. And we, along with the acreage, we also accommodate a lot of uses in our facilities. We've got over 3,200 members at our recreation center and T.E. Harmon Senior Center. We've got over 4,000 kids participating in youth sports here in the city of Sugar Land, from softball, boys and girls softball, baseball, soccer, swimming, you name it. they're doing it. So we're very proud to be able to make that available to our residents. Just wanted to recognize a few of our folks here tonight. Our Barbara Brescian with our Parks.
Where's Barbara?
Barbara, stand up. Barbara Brescian is the chair of our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, actually the Parks Board, the Parks, Arts, Recreation, Culture, and Streetscapes Board. It's a 9-member board of residents that provide input for various parks and recreation and arts-related functions in the city. So thanks, Barbara, for being here. And all of our staff are here. I won't name everybody, but I'll name the divisions and they can raise their hands. I've got Recreation led by Heather and her team and seniors. And then we've got Events led by Brianna and her team, which I'll say in a minute, our big event for the year is coming up in a couple of days. Park Development, led by Phunlin Du and William Hodgick. And there's William. And then Kimberly Terrell is our Assistant Director over Recreation and Events. We've also got Parks Maintenance, represented by Glenn, Matt, and Eddie here. So that covers our bases in the park system. And we do have one special recognition we wanted to make for one of our employees while we were up here tonight. And I'm going to hand that over to Kimberly Terrell to make that presentation.
So as frontline staff in Parks and Recreation, we often come across people that are in distress or just need help in general. And all of our team, everybody up here, will help in an instant when that happens. But we had one instance a few months ago on a senior trip where Sandy Penman, and Sandy, you're going to come up here and I'm going to embarrass you. Come on. Come on. So Sandy was with a group of seniors on an out-of-town trip, and they were on their way back from the trip on the bus with several seniors, and one of the seniors became unresponsive, and so Sandy took action, of course. Found a place to, alerted the bus driver, found a place to get off the highway, figured out where we were, was able to call 911 and get somebody there to take care of the senior. And her husband was with her to take care of the senior and her husband and transport them by ambulance to the nearest hospital. And of course, this is all sort of 3 hours outside of Houston. And you would expect that, that was where that story stopped, but it didn't. And this is what really shows Sandy's level of commitment to the department. Sorry, I'll check that. So Sandy decided to stay. So these seniors, they didn't have anybody in Sugar Land to come and help them. Most of us, we would have called our friend, our family. They could have come and helped us and stayed with us, but Sandy knew that they didn't have anybody in the area, so Sandy stayed overnight with these seniors and made sure everything was okay and rented a car and drove them the next day home. Luckily, everybody was stable by the next morning, and so she was able to drive them safely home and get everybody back home safely. We have a small token of our appreciation for you, Sandy, but we appreciate you and all the work you do for the seniors. Do you want to say anything? Okay.
Thank you. That's all. I just hand it back over to the mayor for the proclamation.
Yeah, proclamation. Sandy, I'd also tell you that we talk a lot about the Sugar Land Way. That goes even above and beyond the Sugar Land Way. So thank you for doing that. This almost seems should have done this before that. This is a proclamation, National Parks and Rec Month for July 2019. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout the country and are important to establishing and maintaining quality of life, ensuring that programs build healthy lifestyles for citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of the community. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas parks and rec programs increase the company's a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction, and whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And it's signed by me as the mayor of Sugar Land. So congratulations to all of you for what you do, Sandy, for what you did, and I'm sure what you'll do in the future. And if we could get everybody to kind of come this way a little bit. There you go, Bree. Yeah, there you go. You get bumped to the back.
All right, excellent. Everybody have enough here, please? 1, 2, 3. A couple more. Great, thank you very much.
Barbara, thanks for coming. That's yours. Last but not least, I'm going to ask Rob Valenzuela. Rob, if you'll come down. And then we've got Public Works staff. I told you guys sitting in the back, you're going to have a long walk down, so come on down. And then we've got a member from the American Water Works Association, Miss Jennifer Elms, if Jennifer could join us. There you go.
Really going to have to get close. Well, good deal, Mayor. Thank you for having us down here. If you recall, back in, I guess it was April, May, we came to you and presented you, City Council with the award for the best tasting water in Texas. At that time, we had told you that we had qualified to then represent the state at the national conference back in June. So earlier, back in June 11th this year, the city competed in the best tasting water for North America. AWWA is set up with 43 sections in North America. That includes Canada. And so out of those 43, 28 submitted water entries. So we had, and just from a couple of utilities from the Pacific Northwest, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Montana, Michigan, New Jersey, Alberta, Canada, Ontario, Canada, Kentucky, Alabama, Florida, Kansas, and Ohio. So that was kind of just a sampling of some of the folks from across the country and Canada who submitted samples. The samples were then placed on a table much like this, and they're just all kind of laid out in cups. And they had judges. They had 4 judges who were tasked with the duty of determining which ones were the best tasting water in North America. A sample that we submitted was from the middle of our distribution system. It comes straight from our distribution system. We didn't take it from the clear wells or anything like that. We wanted it to be representative of what our customers drink at the end of the day. From the 28, Sugar Land made the top 5, and then they rejudged everybody again. At that time, there was a 3-way tie, and so then they went through and judged everybody again. And then there was a 2-way tie. And then they went through and judged everybody again as well. From there, we ended up picking up second, best in North America. A Canadian town of the Blue Mountain, which is Ontario, won the top award. But we were best in the 50 states. How's that?
Hey, Rob, it was kind of unfair. I mean, it's a town near a glacier.
Well, you know,
I mean, come on, now that's not right.
There is an interesting point to that. You know, we take our water from the Brazos River, and for those who don't know, it looks like chocolate milk.
And look what that is, yeah.
And so our surface water plant actually starts off, you know, from a design component, from a turbidity level, its tolerance is probably 2 NTUs at the end of the day. They start with 1 NTU. So as long as they don't mess things up, they're good. So anyways, But really, this really highlights, council supporting our investment into infrastructure on the water side, as well as investment into water rights and water contracts and those types of things, and most importantly, investing into our championship workforce. Everybody from our water plant operators who produce the highest water quality possible, to our pump and motor technicians who keep things running for the city, to the repair crews who respond 24/7 and keep water flowing through the city and flushing lines, to our water quality technicians who take hundreds of samples, if not thousands of samples every year, making sure that we maintain the highest quality water possible, and to our engineering folks who provide us with well thought out designs for our water plants and our distribution systems. But really want to thank you and everybody's hard work, and obviously it's evidence of everybody's hard work. So with that, I do have Jennifer Elms. Where'd she go? There she is. She is a board of directors at the national level with AWWA, and she had a few words to say as well.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to be here to part of this prestigious award. On behalf of the Texas section of AWWA, I'd like to say congratulations to all of you on this most prestigious award. And we want to thank these men and women who have dedicated their professional careers to providing safe, reliable drinking water to the public every day. And we want to thank the council and Mr. Mayor for allowing them and providing them with the tools and the resources and the support they need to achieve those goals. So again, congratulations on the best tasting drinking water in the United States.
Thank you, Jennifer. We're going to do a toast, but before we do that, for those of you that don't know, we get our drinking water from two sources. One is groundwater, and the other is surface water, the water rights that Rob was talking about. And we blend that water. So to win an award like this, blending water from two very different sources, again, somebody gets it out of a glacier. We won. We just get the second place award. If you all would get a glass, I'd like to propose a toast. You go. Y'all come on up, please. Get up. Council, don't get overactive back there and start drinking before we get started. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do it. Folks, this is a toast to all of you in the Public Works Department for your dedication to the city of Sugar Land and to providing the best public water supply system in the United States of America and beyond. We really appreciate your dedication. We appreciate your commitment, and we appreciate your service. Cheers. Cheers. It tastes like glacier water. I'll trade you. Here we go. And we're going to get all y'all back up here for a picture. So once you've handed off your glass, kind of get reordered. Keisha, whip them in the shade.
I'm trying.
Jennifer, why don't you get up front? Get up front with Brian and Rob. Rob, you. Right there, Jennifer. Right there in front. There we go.
Everybody, we're going to take a couple. Up here, please. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. Thank y'all. Congratulations. Thanks for coming, Mike. Yeah, thanks for coming. All right, item number 1, public comment. Anybody that would like to speak on one of the agenda items is invited to come to the podium, give us your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Anybody? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and move to item number 2, review the consent agenda. Item number 3, consent agenda. All the items on the consent agenda are considered routine business. We'll pass them in one motion unless somebody wants to pull an item. Tonight, I'm going to pull item number B. And so we'll take all the other items as one motion. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved with 3B being pulled, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. I've got a motion by Gandhi. Do I have a second? I've got a second by McCutcheon. Any questions? If you'll vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. And now we're going to go back to item B, consideration of and action on authorize the execution of a construction contract with Westman Roofing and Sheet Metal, LLC, in the amount of $164,405.82 for new roof replacements at the T.E. Harmon Center and fire stations number 3 and 5 CIP, MU 1904 Major Facility Rehabilitation. Lane Wolf. Lane.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I don't have a presentation, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Lane, the reason I pulled it was, and we talked about this earlier, I thought it was important for the public. We actually had more than 2 bids, although the award was made on 2. Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. We had 4 bids altogether. 2 of them were disqualified because their bid packages were not complete, according to our purchasing department. So basically the 2 numbers that we had were the low number and the extremely high number. The other 2 numbers were located in the middle. So we moved forward with the qualified lowest bidder, and that's Westman Roofing.
Thank you. Motion approved. I'll make that motion. Got a second by Jacobson. You vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Lane. Item number 4, donations. 4A, consideration of an action on authorizing the execution of a capital donation agreement by and between the City of Sugar Land, Texas, and Sugar Land Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association in the amount of $120,844.90 for 4 UTVs, 4 trailers, 4 CVE scales, and 4 sets of breaching tools. We've got our own police chief, Eric Robbins, here to introduce it. Eric.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a formality because it's a large amount that we have to get donated and accepted by the City Council. But we are ecstatic. I couldn't be more proud and more excited. And I'll just give you a quick little background. A few years ago, our former chief, Douglas Brinkley, and Mr. Gary Becker with Smart Financial, they came together and kind of came up with this brainchild of raise money for our department, the police department. And so we truly thank them. But when they raise the money, we have to spend it. So we're glad that they're doing this wonderful thing for us, but we also have to have partnerships. Part of our mission for the police department is basically to solve problems through partnerships and create this teamwork and help have our citizens and our community help us make our city safe. So this is a great way to do it. Our partners with Smart Financial, our partners with our Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association, and our former chief, we all came together and determined, what is the best way and what are our best needs. And as you can see here, we had a demonstration out on the plaza, and I also have some demonstrations or at least some show and tell here in a second. But I'll just talk real quickly. Here's a couple of pictures that show you those tools. the scales, we were talking about those scales just a minute ago outside, and they will be used for our commercial vehicle enforcement unit, and they can help determine, you know, the safety of these 18-wheelers and large vehicles that traverse on our streets. And an example I'll tell you about is, you know, the bridge on Sweetwater, and we got a bridge on Main Street, an old bridge. That bridge can only hold about 12,000 per axle per vehicle. The bridge on Sweetwater is about, I think, 3,600. And so these scales will be able to determine if vehicles are overweight and will create more damage and create more unsafe issues for our drivers. Our breaching tools, these tools, in one example I can tell you, when they had the incident in Virginia Tech, when they had the mass shooting, you know, it was some rooms in some locations that the police officers, the first responders, couldn't get into because they were locked, and they would have to wait on staff or wait on a key holder. But with these tools, we'll have them in our supervisors' vehicles so that they can actually get into areas where they're needed. These SUVs, we call them police utility vehicles now. You know, for the 4th of July that's coming up, we'll be able to use those vehicles to traverse all through, you know, terrains that we couldn't get through with our SUVs. So without further ado, the event that supported this whole event was it's called Back to Blue. It happened in October over at Smart Financial. So I'll show you this, but I'm just going to ask all of my partners to show up and come up and support me, because this here goes into the event. It tells you what happened with our Citizens Alumni Police Academy Association when they came together, and they were the actual funnel to help get the money and bring that money to us to where we are here today. And they actually were very instrumental in buying and acquiring all of these tools that we have. So without further ado, I'm just going to ask all my partners to come on up with the Alumni Association. Mr. Becker, ACE Partners, and his entire staff. One of our true supporters is Mr.
If the officers could come down also.
And the officers, and I want all of them to come on down, Mr.
Graham.
West, and just, and I'll ask Mr. Becker and even our Alumni Association if they'd like to say a few words, but in the end, we ultimately ask that you authorize the donation. Mr. Becker?
Mayor, City Council, my lovely wife, Amy, Scott and KK West, and Graham Lagdon, we kind of, and Doug Brinkley, you know, we had this idea that we got to support police officers, and we got to buy cool stuff that the department can't afford or can't buy or whatever. And so it's an event that it started in Houston, Texas, in Tillman Fertitta's backyard, and I stole it, and I talked to Doug about it, and I said, we can do that. We can do that. And my partner, Graham, we talked about it, and this year, Scott and KK helped us co-chair the event with my lovely bride, and we're happy to do it. And the police officers are in charge of protecting us, and they're committed to us, and we think that we should be committed to them. And so we thank you, and we are honored to be able to do this. We have another date, February 27th for the next one, and this will continue on.
We do appreciate it. Gary. I'm also going to ask our president of the Alumni Association just to say a few words if we want.
Please.
Come on up here, Tony. And Damon. I'm actually the vice president. Dave is the president.
We're just glad that we were able to help with the West and everybody. This is what we're here to do. We're here to help the police officers, keep our city safe, and we appreciate all the help we got, and we can't wait to do it again. Buy some cool stuff.
You know, we talk a lot in Sugar Land about what makes us different. And what you see is that's what makes us different. I mean, we've got a few folks up here that don't even live in Sugar Land that are contributing. And not only did they contribute their time and their effort, they wrote their own checks. So that's what makes Sugar Land different, is our citizens and the people that we have that participate in all the day-to-day activities to make our police, our fire, and our citizens safe every day. So thank you all. Come on, Aaron, do a picture. Council, if we can stand. Get in the middle, man. We need the chief in the middle. Come on,
Water
officer.
glass.
Get in there. There we go.
All right, great. Everyone looking up here, please. All right, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And last one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Gary, Amy, Scott, KK, Graham, citizens. Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right.
All right, who wants to make the motion? We got McCutcheon's got a motion.
Yeah,
Do we have a second?
I'd like to say just a huge thank you to the Beckers, the West, Graham, and the Police Academy Alumni Association for this incredibly generous donation to our wonderful police department to help keep Sugar Land safe. So I make a motion to approve.
Got a motion by McCutcheon. I've got a second by Kermally. Anybody? Steve? Vote this time, please. I think I know how it's going to turn out. It's 7-0. Thank y'all. Item number 5, workshop 5A, review of and discussion on an overview of the Sugar Land Public Safety Dispatch Office organizational assessment. That just rolls off your tongue, doesn't it? Findings and recommendations from the comprehensive assessment conducted by Federal Engineering LLC. And we've got with us our own Karen Ramirez, Performance and Accountability Manager, and Sherry Bush from Federal Engineering, Inc. And I see Doug Brinkley back there, too. All right, Karen.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council. Yes, like you mentioned, we have Sherry Bush. She is the senior consultant with Federal Engineering who conducted the assessment. For today's agenda, we'll go through the purpose of organizational assessments, then we'll talk about the project's background, and then Sherry will go into the SWOT analysis that was conducted along with the recommendations. So organizational assessments is part of a major program within our office. The purpose for organizational assessments is to promote accountability and transparency, use data to make objective business decisions, identify process enhancements or efficiencies. We also review best practices and do benchmark research. We also leverage technology and identify opportunities for resource alignment. And we also seek customer service enhancements. So for the project background, we came to you on January 8th for contract approval with Federal Engineering. Later that month, the consultant, Sherry, and her team were here for 3 consecutive days. And during those 3 consecutive days, they held stakeholder interviews and observations with the departments that are listed here. And in total, the recommendations the final report came out to 35 recommendations. Now we'll pass it over to Sherry Bush, who will go over the SWOT analysis and recommendations.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, council members, city manager, and Mr. Mayor. As she said, we had 35 recommendations, but we're not going to cover all 35 right now. So we just have 5 quick slides. The first exercise that we did immediately after the focus group meetings, the individual interviews, the observation time, and the Public Safety Dispatch Center was this SWOT exercise. And we did do it remotely over the phone, but it was still very effective. So what we have on this slide and the next one are just the high-level top things that came out of it. Strengths that were identified, and these were identified by the stakeholders that we conducted the exercise with. Number 1 was the council and management support for the Public Safety Dispatch Center. Also, the level and quality of service that the center provides to the public safety response agencies and to the citizens of Sugar Land and visitors of Sugar Land. Weaknesses, we just picked out 3 here because there weren't a whole lot. Staffing, and by that I don't mean the staff, but I mean staffing of the center, and I'll talk about what we mean by that on a coming slide. The limited authority that the city has in the regional partnerships. While the regional partnerships are a good thing, the authority that you guys have over your ability to take advantage of those partnerships is limited. And then probably the biggest constraint physically is the space on the center as it is now. It worked. Okay. Opportunities, the contract and consortium review, and by consortium and contract, I'll talk about that a little bit later, has to do with one of the big three of the technologies that are used in the Public Safety Dispatch Center, and that's the computer-aided dispatch, and I'll go into detail about that shortly. And then the threats also have to do with technology in the way of software and applications that they use and how well it supports the workflow, or in this case, how wonky it kind of makes the workflow, and then the hardware configuration and use under the same issues with the technology, and it really has to do with the regional partnerships that you guys have formed for good reasons and the impact that has on their ability to perform their task in an efficient manner. So from those reviews of the SWOT exercise and the interviews and the observations, the recommendations, we've got some high-level ones here. First, on an operational perspective, it's to increase your staffing. It doesn't mean that there's not enough people to handle the calls that come in, but there's not enough people to support that operational function. We also recommend that once you're able to meet the goal of increasing your staff to 38, is adding some overhires, because in a high-stress career, as in a 911 center, and the fact that it's 24/7, you're going to have problems with retention and attrition. That never goes away. So we make a recommendation that you add some what we call overhires to be able to handle that, because you can't just hire people off the street. They have to go through a very lengthy and complex training process. So if you have folks waiting in the wings, you don't have the gap in the staffing by having the overhires. So part of the increase in staffing has to do with that support I spoke of, oversight and support positions. Right now you have 2 management positions reporting to your director there, and they are in charge of overseeing a very complex and long and lengthy training program, as well as a quality assurance program that's really required in this line of work to make sure you are providing the quality of service that you should. In order to better manage those programs, better stay alongside or aligned with the growth that you are currently experiencing and will continue to experience, you really should have individual, dedicated, full-time employees to these positions. Training coordinator, because of the level of complexity of the program and all the moving parts to it and how long it is. Quality assurance, which is where they review. They actually listen. Someone actually has to listen to the calls for service that come in on 911 and to the dispatches that are made. And industry standards and best practices state you should listen to or review a certain percentage of the call volume that comes in. And in your case, you're, at least at the time that we did our review, you were behind in that. And it was because there was no one that could be dedicated to just doing that. Once they were able to dedicate someone to that, it had to be someone in a part-time capacity. So our recommendation is that it's a full-time job. Eventually, those full-time jobs will end up needing support staff under them, full-time, dedicated to it as you grow. And then lastly, administrative support. All of your city departments, pretty much all of them, have administrative staff. At least one person doing administrative type duties like record keeping and paperwork and HR functions. This is a larger department than many of those departments, and it's a 24/7 department. So it really should have an administrative, at least an administrative assistant. So from a technology perspective, and there's some acronyms here, and I'll try to explain them as we go through them, some recommendations that we made have to do with some issues that you guys have with your technology. 911, when someone calls 911, their phone number and their location is routed with that call, and that's what ANI stands for, automatic number identifier, automatic location identifier. So when that information comes in, all across the country, it's common practice and a common configuration that automatically populates their computer-aided dispatch system, which is where it's the nerve center of a 911 center. It's where the location, the information about the event, description of suspects, further information about directions of travel, of an accident or descriptions of medical issues. All of that's captured there, and your responders are tracked in that system. So it stands to reason that the initial information would automatically populate who the caller is, what phone number they're calling from, and their location. You guys do not have that interface. Part of that has to do with the relationship that you have with Greater Harris County 911, which is a great thing, but you need to sit down and talk to them about fixing that interface so that you get that automatic population going on. PowerPhone interface. PowerPhone is your scripted protocols for providing pre-arrival instructions, specifically medical pre-arrival instructions, like telling somebody how to do CPR, finding out if chest pains and breathing difficulties is a heart attack, finding out if certain behaviors are a stroke, and telling and giving instructions to the caller about what to do until help arrives. There's nothing wrong with that software or that interface, but it's not fitting your CAD. And we know this CAD system, because it's not anything brand new or weird, something's going on with that CAD system. So we identified what probably was the problem and gave some advice on how maybe that could be fixed. Because what happens is when someone dials 911, they should immediately be able to go right into that query with the caller. And as right now, that interface is not fitting correctly and not working right. CAD and mobile data configuration issues just means that what is seen in the 911 center is not what is seen in the responders' vehicles on their laptops or tablets, and it should be. So there's some issues with that. CAD consortium considerations, that's really about the relationship that you currently have for that CAD system. It's with coastal communities. Galveston is one of them. And it's not any of your adjacent neighbors that you normally on a day-to-day basis would respond with and work with. So that's causing a little bit of an issue, as well as that CAD system consortium was originally built for law enforcement. Well, you guys have fire and medical response as well, so that's not a perfect fit there. So there's some recommendations on how to fix that. And then lastly, is probably the easiest one to rectify. It's called ASAP to PSAP, and in a nutshell, what it means is that when an alarm company would normally call in a burglar alarm or something of that nature, a hold-up alarm, they're able to actually just enter it into some software that automatically populates the CAD. It just saves time on what is typically not an emergency call. It saves the call taker time to answer it. So that's something that's fairly easily implemented, probably the easiest of all of these to rectify. And then lastly, recommendations about the space. We did some calculations that are based on national tools, of which we were part of the group that developed those tools, that gives a prediction on how many consoles are needed, how many people are needed, how many consoles are needed. So for your center, you really should have about 12 seats, 8 for your normal daily operations, and then 4 for when there are surges, which they happen. You get a bad accident, you get a weather event, you get any special events happening. You may have some training, you may end up having to help a neighboring jurisdiction, so you have 4 additional consoles to handle that. It also pulls that training off of your main consoles and puts it onto ones that aren't used on a daily basis. So the estimates we gave, and these are super high, rough order of magnitude type estimates of space, but you'll see that we included just the Public Safety Dispatch Emergency Operations Center, but if you so chose in the future, to accommodate a 311 center. So that was super high level, and I'm going to turn it back over to Karen to wrap it up.
Thank you, Sherry.
So for next steps, the project will transition into a departmental priority project that will be headed by Shannon and her group, along with city management, that will work on prioritizing the recommendations. The recommendations will be prioritized based on short, mid, and long term, and will also depend on the available funding and resources. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add a few things. Maybe I may need Doug to come up as well. It's my understanding that one of the factors that is a inhibitor in our ability to be able to continue to enhance the capacity of our emergency dispatch services is the space that you have to work with. And can you address the relationship between that need and the project that is being considered by City Council for an upcoming bond election?
Yes, I believe Chris Steuben is actually working on the CIP, and part of that bond package is actually to have a new dispatch EOC building. So a lot of the space requirements, it makes no sense for us to try to retrofit the current building when, if the bond package is approved, we go forward to go to the voters to approve that bond package, we will be actually in design this very next year, in implementation the very next year after that. Right now, we don't have the space to actually put additional bodies, so the new building would actually rectify that. Some of the technology issues as well, too. We are part of a consortium. We'd always said at the time that we construct a new building, we go back and out and do an assessment as far as continuing our relationship with the League City Consortium, or should we actually go alone, or should we partner with Missouri City? So there's a couple of things we're already working on as far as the design of the building and actually implementation of that, but also those technology needs, we're at a critical point we can evaluate that as well, too.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. There.
Question, Himesh?
Karen or Sherry, whoever can answer this, when we look at an assessment, you typically measure it against benchmarks, right? And there's certain industry standard. Are we meeting those benchmarks in terms of service level?
You are, but where you're falling short is in being able to continue to support that. A good example, quality assurance. What we found, and it's probably been somewhat fixed since then, Shannon could probably answer that, they were about 3 or 4 months behind on doing a review, which that's not going to be very effective to improving your operation if you're telling an employee, trying to give them some retraining, trying to review their work 3 or 4 months past prime. So that's why that support function of being able to train people faster in a more effective training program, being able to review the work in a more timely manner, that's what really supports adding the support staff. You're at a size now where you need that. It used to be perhaps 1 or 2 people could have performed multiple functions, but your growth is at a point now where you're going to need to start adding more administrative type staff to that program.
So, Mayor, follow-up. So when you're suggesting the addition of 7 additional employees, is it fair to say that 3 of those are in the administrative scenarios?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Shannon?
Oh,
Yes. I'm Shannon Price. I'm the Public Safety Dispatch Director. I just wanted to clarify on the quality assurance. Yes, when they did the assessment, we were about 4 months behind in giving quality assurance, and that's because one of the managers was also tasked with quality assurance. We realized that she couldn't possibly do her other job duties and do quality assurance as well effectively. We did have a part-time person who got us caught up on our quality assurance. So we were very happy with that, but we knew that we probably wouldn't retain this person because she lives almost 2 hours away from us. And so what we have done is we've proposed, and it is in the upcoming budget, that we transitioned 3 of our part-time personnel into a full-time QA person. So we are working toward rectifying that situation. And I'd also like to clarify the question about the proposed staff. Federal Engineering did make recommendations about administrative staff. The 7 additional people, I believe, were for the floor operations. And what we really want to focus on is that we need those people on the floor to provide supervision on the floor. Right now, our shift supervisors are also call takers. Sometimes they're dispatchers, and as soon as they pick up a phone or as soon as they get on the radio, they can't supervise. So just like, you may have a working fire and you've got a battalion chief who stays back and supervises and provides support, we need shift supervisors who are able to do that rather than getting in there and doing the work of a dispatcher. So those 7 personnel would help us to be able to pull back our supervisors so they can do that.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. Not sure which of you gets this question, but we're pretty big on so-called value engineering when we're building facilities. Which means that we start big and end up smaller. So the scope of what is in the bond package for dispatch, does it meet these requirements for space, or have we, where what we're asking for money to build, how is that compared to what we're being recommended to have?
So through this process with the assessment that was going on, engineering had already done some previous work in planning and working with dispatch and fire and PD on what the EOC dispatch center would look like. There have been changes, according to this assessment, incorporated in there with some added offices. We have actually added some training space and everything. So they have been coordinated to make sure we have the right facility based off this assessment and other things that we'd identified through the process related to 311 and some training needs as well. Okay. So we've coordinated all that into the scope.
All right, so if our staff decided that all these recommendations needed to be acted upon and we needed this staff, we wouldn't then hear back that we need to expand the brand new EOC?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Follow up?
Two follow-ups, Steve. Sorry.
Just a clarification, would the shift supervisor take on a lot of this administrative responsibilities that you were talking about, that they could just push off if for some reason we were having some kind of a big event, but when they're...
Well, the shift supervisor really, when you do have a big event on the floor, they're more in a support role. For instance, when we had the flood event, that's what I was doing, as well as both of our managers. We were playing that support role for the folks on the floor because the shift supervisor wasn't able to. So it's really to provide oversight for floor operations, to be able to listen in and spot check, the operators as they're taking phone calls or as they're dispatching units, because although we do have a quality assurance program, the national standard is like 2% of our calls, which we've been struggling to meet. But when you think 2% of the calls, you're not catching all the mistakes, you're not catching all the opportunities to, train your folks better, so they're providing better service. So I really think that the shift supervisor, that would really be what they need to be tasked with.
So they supplement the QA full-time position?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer?
Just refresh my memory. When someone calls in on a cell phone, are you able to pinpoint their location?
No, not exactly. When somebody calls in on a cell phone, the first thing we get is the address of the cell tower that the phone has pinged off of to get to our center. We do have something it's called a rebid, and as you do that, it may narrow the radius, but we don't get an exact location at this time. You may remember that I have talked about Next Generation 911 before, and that's what Next Generation 911 is supposed to bring to us, is that it's supposed to provide us a handset location. So it will provide us, where is your phone in your hand, rather than a cell tower and a radius.
And the technology that's needed, is that with the ERP that's on our bond, would that help at all? Or is that's a different system that we're talking about?
It's completely unrelated.
Okay.
The technology is actually, it's not really fully deployed in any center that I'm aware of. Sherry, are you aware?
Sort of. The answer is sort of. Just like Uber can find you or Domino's can find you, 911 can't find you, because the system, the network is 1980s technology. It's literally copper wires in the ground and over your head. So what Shannon's talking about when she shared what Next Generation is, it's getting you to the Uber and Domino's level of being able to locate people. Where it is deployed, it's in bits and pieces. In other words, the equipment that they use may be what's called IP enabled, so it could maybe accept that kind of information. Then there's also pieces like text to 911. That's a big deal that's sort of across the nation with some carriers deployed. So it's really only not even a quarter of a way into it on a national level. They just recently finalized standards that says this is how you're going to do it. This is how these networks need to be designed. This is what the equipment should be able to do. These are the coordinates, X, Y, and Z, which is altitude. So you're on the 10th floor of a building, so that they can pinpoint where these folks are. So it's just in it's not even infancy because it's been around for like a decade that we've been talking about it, but trying to get it to the point where it's 100% reliable like 911 is where they're trying to get it to. But in preparation for that, the partnerships that you guys have with your technology, that's where they're trying to take this. And what's important for Sugar Land in that is to make sure you have a voice in where that takes you, so it doesn't take you down the road in a way that isn't helpful for your citizens and your response agencies.
So, and just for more clarification, that's one of the partnerships that Sherry was talking about. We are part of the Greater Harris County 911 Network, which, includes also cities in Fort Bend County and Fort Bend County itself. And they are responsible for, taking the 911 surcharge fees that you see on, your cell phone bill and utilizing that. And they're the ones that are developing the network to be able to push it out to us. And I'm very active in that. I attend quarterly meetings. I'm on one of the working groups, so I'm making sure that we get what we need. It's just a matter of when's it going to be available and when's it going to be reliable.
Okay, thank you.
Carol.
Thank you, Mayor. So Shannon, you said that the FY20 budget has one additional person for quality assurance. Is that the only staff addition that's recommended in the budget right now?
Yes, that's the only one for this upcoming budget.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm going to ask a different question, and that is, it seems like we're addressing the facilities piece. The technology piece seems to be kind of hanging out there. So can we get Karen, either you or Shannon, or an outside consultant to address the technology piece? Because I know I sit on HGAC Board of Directors, and I think we deal with this 911 on that, and we deal with the allocation of funding, Shannon, that you're talking about. And to the extent that we need to move more dollars into that, I'd like to know that so that we can program those dollars. At some point coming in the future, the sooner I can get a handle on what that is and what those program dollars are, the quicker we can get that Board of Directors to take action.
Okay. Something that Mr. Brinkley alluded to was that we may be able to look at the CAD partnership in the future, and that's something that I think that we need fire, police, and dispatch and IT involved in. I don't know if we actually need another consultant, but I don't think that's a bad idea.
Typically, just like we did the initial combined dispatch study, and that's where we first met this young lady. She did a phenomenal job coming in and found out what we needed infrastructure-wise. The partnership just didn't come together when we talked to Missouri City at the time. Right now, I can tell you there's will to do that if we decide to make that choice. So as we go into the design of the new EOC dispatch building, if the bond is approved, we would actually be the opportune time to actually do those studies, to look at the technology piece, look at the infrastructure, and see if there's a better partnership on the horizon for it that will best suit our needs. Give us more power at the table to make those operational decisions that we don't have right now with the League City Consortium. So a lot of things are lining up, if I can say. It's almost a perfect storm right now with the facilities, the infrastructure, but also the technology piece to actually take a fresh look at everything.
Yeah, Alan, I'd like to ask you, let's develop a backup plan. I've got all the confidence in the world that we're going to get this thing through. But this is such a critical piece, of the overall service that I don't think we can, if something were to happen, whatever that is, then I think we need to have a backup plan for what we do next.
Thank you, sir. Well done.
Thank you, Shannon, Doug, Karen, Sherry. Item number 5B, review of and discussion on the fiscal year 2020-2024 capital improvement program projects for enterprise and restricted funds. And we have Ms. Keisha Seals, our engineering manager. Keisha.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Oops. Just gonna put this stuff out the way. So we're going to go through the enterprise and restricted funds. I'm going to start off by saying on June 25th, City Council, we did a workshop with City Council to review and discuss the FY20 CO project list, the delivery of the 2013 park bonds, the FY21 through FY24 potential GO bond project list, which included the schedule, the actual projects, program specifics, and then the bond program timing. On June 27th, we went to P&Z as per the city charter to get their recommendation to move the new FY20 to FY24 projects forward. So tonight we're going to review the FY20 to FY24 capital improvement program for the enterprise and restricted funds. These projects were developed utilizing the direction received from City Council throughout the year, as well as the spring retreat. We include the new projects as well as the proposed projects for the FY20 through 24 CIP. So the CIP development process starts with identifying capital improvement needs and prioritizing those needs. The needs are identified by our master plans in the IWRP, the Integrated Water Resource Plan, as well as the asset management program, city council, citizen input, and then, of course, state mandates. So we'll step through the FY20 projects first, and then the FY21 through 24 projects for each of the funding sources this evening. And so I'm going to start with the airport funds. Okay. So the airport enterprise funds is Sugar Land Regional Airport and the Global Select are accounted for in the enterprise funds that treat the operations of the airport like a business. This fund is not supported by property taxes, but by revenue generated from the operation of the airport and the sale of aviation fuel to the customers. Fuel is sold at a cost plus a markup. Remaining revenue sources are hangar and land leases, and then fees for the services are provided to the airport customers. So to go through the FY20 proposed airport projects, there's actually only one. This is the continuation of the parallel taxi relocation hangar for $1.8 million. And then this is the construction of the replacement of the hangar, and this is the final piece for the construction of that hangar.
And Keisha, that's that hangar that's up in the front near the upper, if you look to the right, I see Phil nodding his head. So. That's
correct. And so the construction will begin in FY20 and then it'll be completed in 14 months. Okay. So I'm going to step through the FY21 through 24. The taxiway relocation phase 3, this is the final phase of the taxiway relocation project. The project will relocate a portion of the airport perimeter access road and construct the remaining taxiway A pavement and runway entrances. Okay. The terminal ramp expansion, this is the expansion of the existing terminal ramp by adding an approximate 145,000 square foot of pavement. There will be a portion on the north side as well as a portion of on the south side of the existing ramp. And the expansion is really due to the growing demand for the use of the Class A regional airport. Next, you have the approach lighting system. This is the installation of the new medium intensity approach lighting system on runway 35. And then the security fencing, which is the installation of a perimeter security fence around the airport. Okay. And with that, I will move into the FY20 utility projects. But before that, So the Utility Enterprise Fund is an account for all activities for the city's water system and groundwater reduction plan, including repayment of outstanding debt obligations, and treats the operation of the water system like a business. This is not supported by property taxes. The revenues are budgeted based on a historical average year's consumption of water as well as, of water for the customer base. Okay. So the first project is the Collection System Project E. This is a study to conduct some CCTV or video surveillance of the project to evaluate and to do a preliminary engineering report on the project as necessary. So this will help us to plan out for the next FY21 through 24 what projects need to be done for our collection system. And again, all the FY21 through 24 projects are for planning purposes. The FY20 projects help us identify what's needed for the out years. The lift station rehabilitation, this is our annual program for our lift stations identified by staff or through routine inspections and annual assessments. So this includes any upgrades that we would need to do to our lift stations. This is the design and construction for FY20. And then lastly, our wastewater treatment plant. Again, this is an annual program that we have, but this is the study to determine what projects need to be done in the out years for our wastewater treatment plant system. Moving into water. This is the well rehab. This is the design and the construction of our annual well rehab program. This is construction for scheduled maintenance on our wells that have been identified, which include replacing our pumps, cleaning the well screens, replacing any electrical equipment that may need to be replaced. And then the distribution system water main rehab. Again, this is the design of that project this is a biannual project actually that includes the design of the distribution water line system. And this helps us to replace any areas in our water line system that is actually leaking due to aging. The ground storage tank rehab, design and construction. Again, annual investment that we do each year for our existing ground storage tanks. The work includes structural repairs as well as modifications to the tank itself, blasting and proper removal of old coatings and repainting. And then our groundwater plant rehab. This is an annual investment to our groundwater system. The work includes improvements to the booster pumps, on-site facilities, replacing of tanks, yard piping, site grading, and drainage. And then our SCADA improvements is our annual program to the SCADA improvements. This allows for the continuation of necessary repairs and upgrades to the parts of the system that we need for our surface water as well as our groundwater plants to help communicate with our plants. The last project is the State Highway 99 and US 90A water line relocation. This is due to the Texas Department of Transportation construction that they're working on. And so we do have a water line within their right of way, and we would need to relocate that water line out of the area of the construction influence area. Okay. And then stepping into the FY20 surface water projects, our surface water treatment plant expansion. Again, the city adopted our IWRP that provided a plan for expanding the surface water treatment plant per the subsidence district for 2025. And this is the first step of three-step process to expand the plant, which also includes the surface water transmission line routing study. And then the last one, the surface water treatment plant yard piping and aerial crossing recoating. This is a construction. This is for recoating above ground piping at the surface water treatment plant, as well as 3 aerial crossings along the surface water transmission line system. Okay. And with that, I will step into FY21 through 24. And again, just keep in mind all the FY21 through 24 projects are just planning purposes only. Once our wastewater master plan and our asset management plan is completed, then you may see some changes to the programs as we move forward. And for those that I already talked about in FY20, and this is just the continuation of those projects, I won't go into too much detail on those. So collection system project E, that's the design and construction of the previous project. The lift station rehabilitation, again, moving forward with that. The lift station 48, that's MUD 136 Regional Lift Station 1, that's the design and construction of a second wet well and replacement of existing pumps and electrical improvements on the first well. And so that will help us improve that system, which is located in Telfair. Our force main from the north wastewater treatment plant to the west wastewater treatment plant. Since we adopted the IWRP, the current ongoing wastewater master plan will help reevaluate the needs for this force main. And so we'll take a look at that and revisit that, the fact that we may or may not need that force main once the wastewater master plan is completed. The collection system rehabilitation, again, this is ongoing from the previous year, from FY20, as well as the wastewater treatment plant improvements. Again, the FY21-24 water projects, the well rehabilitation is a continuation of FY20, as well as the distribution system water main will be the design and construction of the previous, along with the ground storage tank and the groundwater plant and the SCADA improvements. So all of these are projects that you would see in FY20, and this will be the continuation of those projects as they are mostly annual projects. Okay. With our surface water, the new territory groundwater plant surface water conversion, this project was recommended through our IWRP. It's improvements necessary to the new territory service area to begin receiving treated surface water. It will require improvements at each of the existing groundwater plants. All 3 groundwater plants in the new territory will need upgrades to their existing chemical feed system. The surface water treatment plant, again, is our annual program, then as well as the surface water treatment plant expansion. We talked about that. This will be the design and construction once the study is completed, as well as the surface water transmission line to new territory will be the design and construction once the study is completed. The automated meter integration, that also was a project recommended from our IWRP, design and implementation of the citywide automated meter infrastructure system to remotely monitor the water consumption throughout the city. So this is a citywide program. It will also help us reduce water loss and promote water conservation. And with that, I will move into the restricted funds. So the restricted funds, this is the Sugar Land Development Corporation as well as the Sugar Land 4B Corporation. They were both developed to provide guidance and funding for the operations of the city's economic development program. The program provides business incentives to support and promote growth and diversification of the city's economic base, and the program provides guidance and funding for quality of life projects such as parks and aesthetics. So for the FY20 through 24 restricted funds, we do have our Owens Road project, which is currently ongoing through the PER process. This project does have Fort Bend County Mobility Bonds 2017 bonds. This particular project is for the design and construction of Owens Road once the PER is completed. Our Public Arts project is an annual project. This is for the construction of identified projects that have been identified each year through our annual work plan that achieves the goals of promoting public art and adopting public art in our area. Our adoption of the public art plan was adopted in 2016. The Senior Center study, this is a study to address the growing needs of the existing T.E. Herman Center. The program itself, or the study, will look at location opportunities and constraints, as well as building square footage and parking requirements, as well as operations. And then it will also look at case studies, preliminary architecture, site design, and associated cost estimates. Okay. The Cullinan Park improvements, this is the second phase to the current Cullinan Park improvements project. We will potentially look at including a nature play area as well as a loop trail around White Lake, which was awarded funding from the Texas Park and Wildlife Grant. The Cullinan Park Conservancy will determine the next project to move forward pending funding. Okay. And then the joint participation in CIP, that is also an annual program. These funds help promote projects between the city and citizen-based organizations that benefit the public. Projects are taken advantage of by different locations, different HOAs, different areas to enhance and preserve the quality of life in those particular areas. And then the last project is a landscape replacement for major roadway and enhancements. This is a reconstruction of existing landscape beds along major routes throughout the city to improve the streetscape in those particular areas. And they really focus on interstate and state routes, such as State Highway 99, State Highway 6, and then US 59, as well as US 90A. And so that concludes the projects for the enterprise and the restricted funds. And so moving forward, we have already begun our individuals' meetings with council members pertaining to our budget. We will be filing the budget on July 16th for the FY20 and 5-year CIP. And then on July 23rd, we'll begin our City Council CIP workshops. And then following in August through 6th through the 19th, we'll have a vote to call for the GO bond election in November. And then in August as well, we'll start our budget workshops. And those are the Thursday morning workshops that we do for public education. And then on August 20th, City Council will authorize the publication of intent to issue the COs. And then in September, we will adopt the 5-year CIP as part of the FY20 budget ordinance. And then November 5th, we will hopefully move forward to an election day for the GO bond propositions. And so that's the calendar. You've actually seen this calendar before, but I just want to bring it back to your attention. And, we will continue to move forward as you give us direction. And with that being said, I will answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Keisha, questions? Anyone? Steve.
Just a quick question. Thanks, Thomas. Keisha, the wastewater capacity, if we move to fully develop the new business park, is there sufficient capacity, or would that have to include additional expansions?
I will need to ask Public Works on that. Brian, you want to answer that? All right.
No, sir, all that goes to the north plant, we'd be fine.
I'm sorry?
We'd be fine, capacity-wise.
We'd have to have more?
No, we're fine with what we have, capacity-wise.
They're fine? Okay. I have another question, Mayor.
Hello.
The last time, I know when we did the integrated water resource plan, we specified how we were going to meet, what our different things that we were going to do to meet the water requirements for the city and also for the subsidence district. My last recollection on the subsidence district was they had a date, but there was some discussion of whether they were going to push it out or whether they needed to have it stick on that date. And so given, if that's not changed, we're marching ahead spending money. Are we going to regret, if they push it out, or are we going to regret spending money this early, or is this kind of a fail-safe that says if they don't push it out, we will be ready?
No, so you're referring to the conversion date
yes.
that we had spoken about. To my knowledge, there has not been any movement on that. With respect to your question of marching forward and spending money and doing studies, these tasks have to be done as part of any plan expansion, whether we do them at the current conversion date or a year or two after that. We still have to do this level of planning. There's a lot of things associated, especially with the route study, those types of things as to where the surface water transmission main is going to go. That translates to easement acquisitions, those types of things. And so there's a lot of still pre-planning that we need to do. With respect to the plant side of things, there's a lot of firming up costs and what that actually looks like and those types of things that we'll run through as well. And those take time. They don't happen within a year. They take longer.
So even if they push it out, we won't regret spending this money?
No.
Do we have any idea whether that might happen, or if it might?
There's
when we
been a
would?
lot of noise about that, Steve, but that date, in my opinion, is not going to move. There's no data, hard concrete data available that would cause that date to slide further out. 2025, isn't it, Rob?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Keisha.
Thank you.
Item number 6, appointment. 6A, consideration of an action on the appointment of a member of the City Council as Mayor Pro Tem for the period of July of 2019 to June of 2020. As many of you know, the Mayor Pro Tem under our charter is actually charged with sitting in when the mayor is not available. Lord forbid he be incapacitated. He says, I'm the mayor. But it's my pleasure now to make a motion to approve Carol McCutcheon as the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second? Second. I've got a second by Gandhi. Any other discussion from the council members? Vote at this time, please. It's a 7-0 vote. Congratulations, Carol. Thank you, in the next council meeting, Carol will move to my right, and she'll just change places with Naushad. Item number 7, City Council City Manager reports. Jennifer, let's start with you. The city, well, you changed it up. The city manager report first.
Oh, no, wait a minute now.
There we go. Oh, there we go.
There's been Mr. Mayor, somebody's trying to pull a fast one on you.
Someone's messing with you, Al.
Could we go back to the,
We'll go to B,
Yeah.
the city council member reports. Jennifer.
There's no telling what kind of trouble a change like that could cause.
Okay, the Junior Catholic Daughters of America has had their state conference here at the Marriott. The mayor and I were there to welcome them. Went to the HGAC Transportation Policy Council meeting with the mayor. 2 LID meetings, LID 17 and LID 11. Fort Bend County Infrastructure Conference. Marched in the Juneteenth Parade in Missouri City. Welcomed World Vitiligo Day at the Marriott, and I had the pleasure to visit a small business owner in Sugar Land called Creative Minds Child Development Center. They had their 20-year anniversary of running a business in Sugar Land, and I wanted to point out that this, the owner is definitely an anchor of our city and goes out of her way to provide for child care for babies for young mothers who can't afford that, and that's something that is very commendable for this small business here in Sugar Land. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just highlight 2 items. I attended a Regis Lakes annual HOA meeting. We had representation from the police department and the fire department. Thank you both for sending someone. They gave very informative presentations, a lot of questions. People really appreciated having your reps there. Thank you very much. Coming up, Fort Bend Historical Association, I'm not sure, but it sounds like fundraising to me.
Reception. Yeah, reception.
Yeah, that's all, Mayor.
Carol.
Yes, attended the SL4B and Finance Audit Committee meetings, and all of us attended Councilmember Bridget Young's farewell reception, which was very, very nice. And as Councilmember Lane said, we attended the LID 11 community meeting in Greatwood, and it was very well attended, and I attended the infrastructure conference meeting.
No, sure.
Mayor, I attended the LID 17 meeting, which is in our district, District 2 in Telfair.
and also I was part of the infrastructure luncheon last week as well.
Thank you. Ramesh.
No report, Mayor. It's all been covered.
Stuart.
Mayor, on Thursday, I attended the Fort Bend Mayor and City Council Association monthly meeting in the city of Thompsons, and it was a very nice event, and the catfish was homemade. And on Saturday, I attended an even more lovely event, the Sugar Land Employees Day at Constellation Field. Those of you who attended know it was a great time, and it was rain-cooled, so it was a very nice evening.
Yep, thanks, Stuart. I'm going to highlight a couple things. One, I appreciate all the participation from Sugar Land employees at Employee Day over at Constellation Field. I think we had a great turnout. I'd also like to highlight that at the Transportation Policy Council meeting on Friday, we approved, or we conceptually approved, we'll vote on it next month, the I-45 Segment 2. This is critically important to our regional transportation plan. It's merely the second part of a three-phase process, in total about $9 billion. And then I'd like to also highlight that myself, Elizabeth Rosenbaum, and some staff from the airport attended the retirement reception for Dave Fulton, who is the director of TxDOT Aviation. Dave was a very critical part of the expansion of our airport for the last 25 years. And we appreciate, I know former Mayor Thompson appreciates, we appreciate, Alan, I know you do, Phil, everybody with the airport system appreciates the urgency with which he considered our requests. There were many times when we had shovel-ready projects, and/or our recent was this acquisition of land from the GLO, where we were able to secure funding. Not quite sure who the next director is going to be, but we look forward to working with TxDOT Aviation to continue to build a world-class FBO airport. And that concludes my report. Alan, 7B, we're going to put you back up to the...
Where I belong, last.
You know what, I think that was an E-team. I think they're messing with you.
They may.
I think they might be.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Look forward to working with you, continued working with you. I'd like to acknowledge and express appreciation to Councilmember Jacobson and Kermali for their additional time that they are putting in with orientations with city staff. They were here first thing this morning and here pretty much all day long, and that will continue for some period of time as they get their arms around the breadth of what it means to be an elected representative in the city of Sugar Land. And we're grateful for the opportunity to be able to share as city staff. Finally, I would like to remind everyone that we've got a little event coming on Thursday, 4th of July, Independence Day. Of course, offices will be closed on that day as we will be hosting the Red, White, and Boom event at Crown Festival Park. Activities will begin at 4 p.m. and will run until 10 p.m. with the biggest fireworks show in the history of mankind, Mayor. That's what I was told.
Yeah, that's,
Thank you very much.
Well, you're very welcome. I look forward to sitting watching.
Me too.
I look forward to watching those fireworks from Lake McQueen up there. Sound like they're going to be coming right up over where I can see them.
They are. You should.
I'll be able to see them right away.
Allowing for the curvature of the earth.
Well, I've already calculated that. Now I should be just in a great spot to see that.
Very good. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Thank y'all. Carol, congratulations.
Thank you.